would that have prevented?
I think so. I mean, I think a lot of things would have. Well,
one thing about Saddam Hussein, he didn't like terrorists.
No, basic intel would have basic intel sharing would have prevented. We had it
in Iraq.
We had it, not in just Iraq, but along the way. I mean, you had a bombing in '93.
Oh yeah, we had a lot.
In the towers. You had a bombing in the World Trade Center. You knew they were going to do it, and put reports forward to Carson Dunbar in New York, and the worst FBI agent in history. And then went on and took over the New Jersey State Police. You know, the guy's a moron.
Was he the head of counterterrorism before?
And he gets the report. They send him a report. Hey, there's dudes in Arizona. 63-page report. Dudes in Arizona. All they want to do, they don't care about taking off or landing. They just want to learn how to steer the aircraft.
Well, he wasn't
our guys.
He wasn't in charge of counterterrorism.
Yes, he was.
No, John O'Neill was.
No, John O'Neill was New York's counterterrorism.
Right.
Carson Dunbar was New York's guy. He was the ADIC. Yeah, he was the assistant director in charge there.
And he didn't show that to John O'Neill?
Listen, O'Neill was busy drinking and fucking banging chicks, you know.
Let's
be honest.
Well, let's be honest about that, but he also, I won't take this from him. I mean, he sounded the alarm over and over again. He did it in D.C. too. He did it at these meetings. I mean, it's verified.
If you watch Looming Tower, they'll make you believe that.
You don't think so?
No. I think the key was very. If the first bombing doesn't trigger some type of defense mechanism that stays on that for the rest of the time, just like we've forgotten now. Just wait. I'm telling you.
But you like that documentary, or not documentary, you like that series because of some of the things it showed that were true themes, like the discord between.
Yeah.
I
mean,
we were talking about that last time.
Well, that's the issue, right? So the issue is no information was shared.
Right.
You can't get past that. Anything you look at, you can't get past the fact that we had, a school kid could fucking connect that. We chose not to because of personalities like John O'Neill.
Well, the guy, I will say,
just abrasive as shit, or Mary Jo White sitting as the U.S. attorney, at the time, just abrasive personalities and know better than everybody. That was the problem.
Well, the guy
didn't listen to the military. The
guy at the CIA was the worst. Have you ever heard that?
I don't even know. I don't know that guy's even a truthful character.
Probably not. Have you heard his testimony at the 9/11 Commission?
I've heard. I mean, yes, I've heard and studied it, along the way. But
I've never heard something like what he said that wasn't in a shitty Hollywood movie. He said, this is a direct quote, at the 9/11 Commission, they were asking him about his relationship with John O'Neill. Because whether or not, and I understand the other stuff was true, he did say, whether or not he was sounding it every day, he's on record. He did say this shit like, yo, this guy Bin Laden's fucking coming here. He was the guy over there in Nairobi investigating. Some of his people died too. He was the guy at the USS Cole, which you know about too, was investigating. Like, he was on the ground with this shit. And the guy at the CIA, Michael Schur, who hid a lot of this stuff from him, he was the head of, what was it called? Alex Station, which was the Bin Laden unit. At the 9/11 Commission, he was asked about his relationship by one of the senators with John O'Neill, and they said something I'm paraphrasing. They said something along the lines of, to Michael Schur, the senator said, and Mr. Schur, you did not have a good relationship with John O'Neill, and when you were asked about his death, you didn't reflect that you were upset about it. And he said, yes, sir. And I'd like to add that I said the only good thing to come out of that day was that those two buildings fell on top of him.
Yeah.
That's some Dr. Evil shit.
But that also tells you that the mission to John O'Neill was not as important as John O'Neill.
You think so?
What job did the guy get?
Here's what I think it says.
What job did the guy get?
I think John O'Neill, and I think this is reflected on the record, I think it's that same problem we had talked about, which was he was at the FBI. FBI's, at that time especially, police. They arrest. They make the case. They put it in court. He wanted to arrest and bring back. CIA, sometimes not for the right reasons here, they're all about cultivating that information. And so they wanted to cultivate, and John O'Neill was not going to do that.
But why did John O'Neill want to bring back an arrest?
Oh, definitely for the credit of that, no doubt.
Period.
Of course, yeah.
Period. What did I say before? What is the true sign of someone whose intent is for the good of the bigger organization? Intel. Was there ever development of Intel in John O'Neill's watch? Never.
I don't think so, no.
Never.
Yeah.
Bingo.
And in fairness to him, that wasn't his job description.
Wasn't his job. He pushed himself into every big case. I can remember. I witnessed it. We'd be like, this guy's a fucking clown. Here we go again. We're fighting with this one. Like, it was kind of like, listen, man, we just want to get this shit done. We don't need to be fucking fighting with everybody. There's no need. I go in, I do the job. I collect this, I do that. I talk to these 3 people. I'm out. I don't need to fight. What are we fighting for? And so that carried over at a critical time. At a critical time. That relationship carried over. And quite frankly, it cost us, because of egos, it cost us a chance to at least deter some of what happened. Honestly. And I think I have a lot of respect for the Bush family because of what they did for Sheila. You know, what W did for Sheila. I can never take it away from that, what he did. And but at the same time, what else were we going to do? There was nothing else. They came on our soil, on our watch, and blew up. It was the greatest military operation in probably the history of the world. The preciseness of what they did.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so those who don't want that to be true have to kind of theorize we blew up our own buildings. Fucking nuts.
But whatever. I'm glad you brought that up real quick.
Yeah. Nuts.
It drives me nuts.
Nuts. It's nuts. It's treasonous. You know, ultimately, but my point on that is egos, in my opinion, caused the lack of intel to allow us to make appropriate tripwire decisions, right, on how to stop this and listen to the chatter and not be worried about shit. Secondly, after the towers went down, they came on our soil and they fucking did what they did. It's never happened. Pearl Harbor was terrible. Pearl Harbor wasn't CONUS.
No, and it was military
outlying.
too.
It was military.
Yeah.
They did what they did, right? And we missed it. What are we going to do? What can we do except we're the strong to save face? We're the strongest military force in the world. We have to go.
Why did we not hold to this day? And I never asked you about this, like how Sheila feels about this, but why did we not hold Saudi Arabia accountable? And that's been every administration.
Well, I think. Listen, I think in me it's a simple answer, right? Oil, period, right? But at the same time,
money,
follow the money. But the other thing that I think has happened more recently, and this guy will take credit. Just kind of like, listen, you know, you come off of a what the world considers a kook, you can take credit for shit, right? But it's the same kind of dynamic. You've studied it, you know, Carter giving in to Reagan and Reagan taking credit for the release of the Iranian hostages, right? So this release of documents, most recently, not all, but pretty decent. My personal opinion, and I have not seen anything.
I got to look at this. Biden released some of these now?
I want to say, yeah. For some reason, Sheila mentioned it to me. But I think it's a pretty open and shut case to be able to prove that, you know, the home of bin Laden, Saudi Arabia, and I think arguably one of the top 10 richest families in the history of the world. How could there not be some type of tie back? How could there not be, you know, a restitution piece coming from that country?
It does. I just have it behind us to make sure we have.
Does it say anything or
no? So they didn't do everything. It seems like a small step.
Yeah,
which is probably not the 9/11 families, I'm sure, are pissed about
but
this.
It's enough to go. I think that what they did is they were able with that to go back and continue the process
in court.
I think so.
Right. So just real quick, this is from Reuters, September 12th, because Biden, I'll give him some credit for this. I guess he released it the next day. He was not some of the 9/11 families at their personal memorial as sitting president, as they had said to previous presidents, if they're not released, don't come. Don't show up to our thing. So then the next day he released it. The FBI on Saturday released a newly declassified document related to its investigation of the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States and allegations of Saudi government support for the hijackers following an executive order by President Joe Biden. The partially redacted 16-page document released by the FBI.
It's nothing.
It's not a lot.
No.
On the 20th anniversary of the attacks, detailed contacts between the hijackers and several Saudi officials, but it did not draw a definitive conclusion whether the government and I never say that right, Qaeda was complicit in the attacks, which killed nearly 3,000. And when we look at this data, I mean, it's to me, it's clear they didn't plan it. They weren't sitting there saying, Bin Laden, well, here's the plane. They weren't doing that, but they were very aware of what was going to happen, even if not the total medium. You know,
dude was on the fucking radar for how many years?
A long time
leading up to that. Shit. I mean, they had. I think in the Clinton administration, right? They had sights on him.
Oh, yeah. Bill
Pretty
didn't.
Sure.
They say that by the end, Bill got it.
Yeah.
By the end, he was like, okay, these guys, bad. Let's get them. But there was a shot, or before they had fully convinced them, they had a shot at him.
Yeah,
they were pretty sure it was him. In the earliest days, I believe, of drones. In like 96, 95.
They definitely had him.
They saw a 6'4" figure walking on top, and he didn't, because he wasn't sure. And I don't want to be a hypocrite and actually like yell at him for this, because I yell at presidents for overusing drones and fucking creating warmongering opportunities where they kill innocents, you know, and then it's like, look, your daughters and sons died. It's on them. Let's go after them. So in some ways, I don't want to criticize that, but god damn.
You got to take that shot.
I mean, Jesus Christ. They had him.
You got to take that shot.
You got to take that shot. I think.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's, you know, I'm convinced, I'm a total believer that Saudi's 100% responsible, you know, for the part that they played in it. But, you know, is that ever going to happen in my lifetime? No. You know, not a chance.
I mean, you always talk about this follow the money.
Yeah.
We saw it again with the Jamal Khashoggi incident, which was just, I was a slap in the face to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, so obvious.
Oh, God.
And nothing happened.
Well, that's the result. That's what happens when you have 20-year wars that produce the exact same result as day one. With Taliban running all over the country, executing, fucking hanging people from buildings, you know. That's what happens. You know, I mean, everybody's scared to go do anything. And this guy, this guy in the White House, he's just. I'm not saying anything personally about the guy. I mean, I have some views on his behavior leading up to, you know, his a bunch of different things that I believe, but ultimately he's just seen as a weak figure. You know, he's not a guy that the world's going to respect. They're laughing at him. I mean, you see it all over the place. If you can Google any kind of news report from anywhere in the world, and everybody's laughing, showing his mistakes and everything. That's not good. You know, that's hence why. You know, big government to me is scary. You know, it's just scary to be dishing out everything to everybody. It just takes away incentive, and it doesn't matter. It cuts across race. It cuts across, you know, economic status. It cuts across everything. Doesn't matter who you are or what you are. We're in trouble.
And just to be clear on the, I guess, part one of this podcast, where I was checking the balance of a good FBI agent like you, talking about it in the middle of a case where, of course, you see what's happening here and you want the objective.
Right.
When I check it with that, I'm not checking it because of you. I'm checking it because of the other people in your position who aren't like you, who get there. You know, and there are some who then...
No, there's definitely
used,
some.
and that's used as an opportunity. You talk about the big government like that. It's used as an opportunity to expand that and to create precedent. You know, and this isn't our country, granted, but I mean, look at Australia right now.
Well, I mean, you know, we're not going to have enough time to create precedent.
What do you mean?
We're gonna be in trouble, bro. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. And I just don't know who the right person is to come in and heal it. You know, we're just, I mean, the shit that's happening out there, the way things are going, there's no cause or concern for, you know, what tomorrow brings. You know, and that's sad. It's sad for the kids. It's sad for, you know, younger Americans who are, you know, I mean, who's going to serve in the military besides Texas and Alabama?
Wow. That's one way to put it.
Right? Who's going to do it? California's going to go out there? No. Northeast going to go out there and be war heroes? No.
I think that we've created, like you talk about the who's going to come in here and solve it. If you have a D or an R next to your name, I don't think you do now by default. I don't care if you're the second coming of Jesus Christ. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. And like I talk about this topic all the time in different contexts, so I'm never ashamed about bringing it up over and over again. But like, if you look at the chart of the wealth gap, I mean, you could look at it for the world, but especially here, since the 1980s, and you watch this V form, the thing that's correlated with that is our political differences forming in the middle of it at the same rate across from each other. And everything's just an iteration on top of each other.
Well, you're right. There's no true beliefs. It's just, how do I get more money? Or how can I not get less? There's no true beliefs. I mean, you know, you were in a industry that, you know, it's, how do I get more money? How do I become part of the 1% and stay there? Right? And
I saw a big mix of that.
Yeah. And there's no care or concern for anybody else.
There are people who absolutely, I'll say to an extent, take that into account.
Yeah.
There are other people in there who do the job and don't actively think about that, but they're not laughing about it in the elevator. Then there's the third kind of person who's laughing about it in the elevator.
Right.
And I did encounter some of those people.
Sure.
And you knew who they were. I'm glad I never worked for them. They were the kind of people who, I mean, you want to talk about not having an open mind to anything. Their whole life was miserable because they looked at it as, who's going to threaten the next bigger check I'm going to get? Forget the check I already have.
Correct.
Who's going to threaten the next bigger check? And to me, when I see all these regulations come in, which, you know, drove me nuts, drove me right the fuck out of there. Good thing, all in all. You know, I got out of where I didn't belong. To me, the people that then make those regulations, they have a huge argument behind making them because of the people like that. Because of the people, like, there's a guy, Jared Dillian, who was a great trader at Lehman Brothers, who after the financial crisis left banking behind. He was a great writer during his career. He would write a Bloomberg newsletter every morning on the terminal. And so he made that his full-time job. And then he's an investor, very successful guy, wrote some great books. But he talks about, he has a great quote. I always amend it a little bit, but he says, there were approximately 20,000 people who worked at Lehman Brothers. 19,995 of them were generally good people who, by and large, were good at their jobs. Mm-hmm. I always amend it and say 19,970. But the point is taken. The point is that you had a small, select group of people who, in that case, I'm talking about the financial crisis, made decisions that then trickled down the line to people who just have a job to execute.
Right.
Trusting what happens. I mean, you understand that, chain of command, trusting what happens above you. Just like some people, by the way, with like stellar wind and stuff, who were just, you know, they're doing their job, right? And they're not thinking about it. Like, I don't blame all those people who saw it. Like, same thing here. And now you cause this whole crisis. You do all this shit. You're the fucking guy in the elevator. You're the guy talking shit against everyone else who's not you and your life that you already hate yourself. And then what happens? Everyone in Washington, D.C. creates rules for all of us that make no fucking sense, by the way. Because what do they need? They need a head on a stick. And they need a symbol to say, we did something. It won't happen again. Until it does. And then they'll make more rules.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you know my feeling in that world. So
yes, I do. And you were in the white collar world.
Yeah,
you saw one too many of those cases, I think.
Yeah. I saw them all.
You saw less from our line, the line that I was in. I'll say you definitely saw less from that, and you saw more from the people who were touching the corporate side or like the ownership side.
I think I can throw it. You give me a dartboard and give me anybody in that industry, and let me throw a dart. I can fucking make a case on any one of them.
That's scary, but maybe you're right.
No issue. Not even an issue.
The thing I got to ask you about, though, that a lot of people...
Because what's their value? We talked value and impact, right?
What do you mean?
What's the value in that industry? What's the only thing that's of value? How much you make. Period.
I'll push back on that and say, and I understand the cynic in you
there's no
not
reason.
being in it.
There's no reason.
There are some...
I don't give a shit about my clients. I give a shit about how much money my client's going to make me. Period.
There are some people who don't think that way. I'm not gonna...
How do they think?
I know some people in there who genuinely give a shit. And if they genuinely give a shit and they're good at their job, do they make a lot of money? Yes, they do. I can't get around that. That's anything. You're valuable. I shouldn't say anything. It's a lot of things. If you're valuable in something, you make money. But I've seen people in the middle. What about me? What do you mean?
I'm valuable in something.
Yeah, and now you made money after your career, but during your career at the government, you're not paid much.
You're not going to make any money.
Sure.
But I don't do it for the money.
Agreed.
But they do. That's the difference.
That actually...
There's no value. There's nothing bigger than themselves. It's themselves. They're the big. They can say the so-and-so wealth group is bigger than myself. Well, that's you.
If they're at the head of it.
Right. So I think that comes down full circle. It comes back to educating those people and trying to teach them what is important, what really is impactful. And so, you hear so many people that are Monday morning quarterbacking a lot of issues, right? So the perfect example that I have, I can remember and it goes back to like a high level coaching organization that, in order to stay relevant, they have to raise money, right? So in order for a team, a club to stay relevant in a very competitive sport, right? College wrestling, right? In order to do that, you have to raise money, and you have the right within college wrestling with these regional training centers to actually raise money and to bring people in. Bring in like what they call elite athletes, right? So they come in and, hey, they wrestled, they're trying to make the world teams or Olympics. And I can remember there was a dude that just had tons of advice on the actual operations portion, like the technique and here's how you should do this and whatever. And I can remember one of the greatest lines I think I've ever heard, and it goes back to, hey, I want to. I think I can solve whatever issue, and I think I could solve the way. Let's just take the way we pulled out of Afghanistan, right? Okay. We can. I have some ideas, right? And it was the same kind of thing. I think I can solve the way for your team to have more takedowns in matches late.
Sure.
And the coach just looked at him and said, "Really, I appreciate that. Write a fucking check." And the guy looked at him and said, "Well, I don't really have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. You just wrote a check that bought all brand new football helmets, home, away, and alternate for a 150 man roster at the same university." And I looked at the bill, and that was $495,000. Stroke a check, and don't ever fucking talk to me again about takedowns. So my point is, a lot of those folks, if you want to become heard or impactful, put your money where that's all they can do. Their opinions are only opinions that are valued by those in their organization, right? About what the latest piece here and piece there. And listen, I think there's some great guys who have given back or who have succeeded in the business. And, most of those guys have overcome a lot of that good old boy, laughing in the elevator shtick. But those who have not are guys that need to step up and be counted. And their value, where my value is in, my ability to consult, my ability to kind of help and guide and mentor, their value is in write the fucking check. So that's part of what I see as no longer being part of the solution, but we continue as a country to all be part of the problem. We're worried about what the next administration is going to do. Who knows? Could be worse.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but we've had one after another that has been worse than the one
Hasn't
before.
been great.
No. So that's my point. Like, when do we really think there's one, without us really collaborating as a country, right, to put a better one in place, do we really think that we have kind of solved that problem? Do we really think we have a true solution to the problem? And really, I honestly, if you go back and track it, I think one has been worse than the next. Hard to do, but
you might be. I'm a big not George Bush liker, so I'd probably go him. But yeah, like in general, the theme there, yes, I think you might be right about that.
I think we continue to get. To be fairer, we don't get any better.
No, I'm not a fan of anyone we've and I can't even believe I say this sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I talk with my grandpa about this, who's like, guy's never voted for a Democrat in his life. He's like a card-carrying Republican, and he was powerful in the corporate world in the 90s at the height of his power, and he even can't believe that we say this, but I've said this to him a few times, and he doesn't disagree. It's like, minus a couple things that were political moves, like the 94 crime bill, which was not good, which was a bipartisan thing in fairness to him, and then also the repealing Glass-Steagall in 98, which was catastrophic, started the financial crisis like on its way, and then obviously the blowjob in the Oval Office. Minus those things, Bill Clinton, I'll say at the same time, very not good guy, not someone I'd want my kid to emulate, very effective president. And we had a lot of very good years with him. When you look at every president since then, there has been some sort of disaster at the very least.
Yeah.
That occur. I'm not just talking like a 9/11 or something. I'm talking like catastrophic political disaster that happens, a theme that you can point to. And yeah, like you really open my eyes in the visual of, maybe it hasn't gotten progressively worse.
I mean, I think about it, and I think conservatively we can say it hasn't gotten any better.
No.
So I'm not going to say it's gotten worse each time, but it surely hasn't been any type of change and improvement.
No.
Right? So I think that is something that we can all, and this is like, pipe dreams, but, it's something that really, can we find that person or persons that can kind of bring this together? I don't know. I just worry so much about the fact that the country, the people, the rank and file of this country are so distorted.
Yes.
And so far apart, like you said. And it's not just a dollars and cents or status. It's more than that. It's beliefs now. It never, I mean, listen, 50s, 60s, beliefs were different, right? But way different. But it's way worse now.
Yeah.
Way worse now.
Agreed.
Way worse. I mean, and I think we can examine that and study that for the next 20 years and still not come up with the reason why it was different in the 50s and 60s than it is now, but it's really the same problems. It's issues with race. It's issues with, entitlement. It's issues with just self-serving agendas. It's career politicians. It's term limits. It's the fundraising and the money. It's
same shit.
Campaign finance. It's everything. It's a stretched thin group of public servants, i.e. law enforcement, military. All those things are years long studies to even figure out what the fuck went wrong and when. I just don't think you can blame it on any administration, and look at it and say, hey, this is totally this or this is totally that. And I'm not defending anyone, but I just think what Trump was awful. All right. I'm not going to, but we voted against, like I said, we voted against Trump. We didn't vote for Joe Biden. Right. I mean, if you hear the story behind the Biden run, it's sad. Run. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad in that who brought it to light for him? Like who, I mean, shit, my feelings on the Beau Biden, promise me dad. I mean, fucking bullshit,
And I do want to say this too, because like, I didn't know him, but
right.
Beau Biden was I did know a lot of people who knew him.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who know Joe too, previously, politically not a fan, but good people, right? And Beau especially. I'm not going to speak for Hunter. I can't say the same.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
But for Beau, it's a tragic story that he died young, but serviceman.
Terrible.
Well-liked, great guy,
Smart
down to
dude.
earth. And then I felt like it was such a manipulation of the fact that he's not here anymore to
Correct.
do that. And I will say this as well. It has never
it's a great story.
It has never felt like to me Joe Biden wants this.
Right. Never.
I feel like
Never.
Matt Kemenosh said in here, I borrow this line. He said it beautifully. Well, not beautifully, but he said it perfectly. He was like, it's really sinister what they're doing to him. I agree.
I couldn't agree more. And, that's exactly right. They had to come up with the story of Beau Biden, which is a powerful story.
Yeah, it's got truth
somebody
to
dies,
it. Yes.
and that Joe never said. And even if Joe would have said, I said to Beau, you're goddamn right. I've been waiting for this my whole life. It never happened. Like we got to get this guy out. It was all about getting this guy out before he did something crazy. And I can't honestly say I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, that's the crazy part of it.
It's scary, right? And at the same time, like I look at the whole. They're so much alike, but from different areas, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Trump family is as more dysfunctional than anyone, but the Biden family is right there.
Right.
I mean, listen. Here's the thing that bothers me more than anything. Beau dies an awful, painful, I'm sure, long-lasting cancerous
brain cancer, right?
Cancerous death, right? It has to be horrific. Leaves behind a widow, beautiful widow. What happens? What happens? Hunter Biden, right? So if nothing else,
that's some Alabama shit to me.
That's some Alabama shit. That's some fucking just. That's some biblical shit, bro. Right? Like, yeah. I heard Biden or somebody quote something about the Bible. Like, well, the brother is supposed to take care. Well, you know what? The Bible also says we should
supposed to fuck them.
Well, the Bible says we should stone fucking people. I don't do that anymore.
That was just
adulterous. So
yeah.
If Joe Biden couldn't find a way to lead that down a different path, how the hell can we expect him to straighten anything out?
I want to say one thing, and then there's two things we got to close on, and we're going to get out of here soon, but I do want to say one thing to that. Otherwise, we'll go down this for hours.
Yeah.
What's so weird to me, and it's strictly by coincidence of my geography, is that in these last two elections, we've had three candidates, right? We've had Hillary, Trump, and Biden.
Yeah.
I caddied at Wilmington Country Club for years. Used to caddy for Joe Biden's brother-in-law all the time. Never caddied for Joe. I never talked with Joe. I don't fucking know Joe
Who's
at all.
Who's that, Doc Biden, the Jill's brother?
I'm actually not going to say. But
all right.
Yeah. Okay. And I did stand near him and stuff, and one of the shocking things is that last time I stood close to him was summer 2014.
Okay.
Not that long ago. And I remember my thought was, holy shit, isn't this guy like 71? He was yoked.
Yeah.
He was coming on the tee, like busting balls with everyone. And everyone liked him, including most of the membership who didn't vote for him. They were not exactly Democrats, right? everyone liked him. And I'm like, God damn, this motherfucker's a machine.
Yeah.
Then I see him give his first speech 5 years later. I'm like, how many brain aneurysms? Like 10? So that part's crazy to me. But with Trump, I was up in North Jersey. How many fucking people? I played at Trump Bedminster with people. How many fucking people do I know I know a few people who are like that with him, right? I knew people, I have distant family members who were in business with him for years. It's like I knew all the bad. I knew all the, like, all right, there's less than what they say there. And then I heard some stories from Trump Bedminster that would give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
And then with Clinton, Chappaqua, New York, got family that lives up there. Got a lot of people that are like close to that. And there was a weird dynamic here. And so there was a little bit of a human side with all three of these people that I couldn't put aside. What I will say is that I never heard a good story about Hillary. She was the one person. Like, I heard a lot of good stories about Biden. I heard a lot of good stories about Trump. I also heard negative political stories in the sense that people who would tell the same good stories would be like, for Trump, they'd be like, but he's a jerk off.
Right.
He has no idea what he's doing. And then for Biden, they'd be like, but he's kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was never like, hey, good ending for them to be president, but there's like a human side to it. With Clinton, it was like, no, she's kind of evil. So take that for what you will.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of those three people should have been in that position. It is just very, very weird to me, like sitting in the seat where there's like a little bit of a connection to all of it.
Yep.
And yet we're at this point in the country where these are the figures that, on purpose or not on purpose, have led to the symbolic division of everything. And then I guess you got to throw like Obama and Bush in there too.
Yeah.
But like in the recent years, these are the people that the fights have been over.
Totally.
And yet at the end of the day, they're just dumbasses playing at country clubs. Like that's how I see, you understand what I'm saying? Like how weird that is?
Yep.
And then like you're in government, you were around these people. I can't even imagine how you, like the incompetency that you know of at certain levels that like we would all have a heart attack over.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's weird. Well, the last two things are actually they're to the viewers who are a huge fan of yours and the listeners.
Yes.
And it's some stuff we discussed last episode. And as I've said on these, or the last time you were in here, I should say, as I've said on these, I'm careful about, not touching. You're already very open about stuff I don't want to overstep and stuff you don't want to touch. So the first thing was the September 15th, 2001 story. Yeah. Which also went a little viral on TikTok, where that was something we had talked about, not in detail, off camera, like maybe a few weeks before. And so when you were telling it and you kind of stopped it, I didn't push on purpose because I was like, oh, maybe there's some details there or whatever. But I talked to you on camera before tonight. What I wanted to clear up was, if we can go into details, the whole concept. There were a lot of people guessing that this was the quote-unquote dancing Israelis. And my understanding was that the quote-unquote dancing Israelis were the people in the white van who you made...
Yeah, that was the North Jersey piece that we're filming.
You made a quick mention of that. What was that?
They were filming. They had cameras set up to film prior to the planes crash.
And they were Israelis?
I believe so. I just can't... I was racking my brain for it. I think that's right, though. And
so the conspiracy theory that people were putting on was that
they
the Israelis knew.
They were waiting for it to happen. And that's not the only story that had come out of that. There were similar stories, and there's actually, if I remember viewing a video of it being set up before, like viewing a video from the towers, like all focused in, and then the planes hit.
So when you see something like that, and I want to clarify too.
Yeah.
Right away, just like as a high-level basic intelligence measure, when I see people try to tell me those weren't planes that go into the building, I literally want to jump off a building myself.
Yeah, I would like to myself.
That's insane.
Oh, God.
But for the people that are like, oh, we knew it was coming, or someone knew it was coming, when you hear something like that, it's like, what the fuck? Like,
Listen, I was convinced, and there's a couple things, that strike me.
But those are Israelis. Those are supposed to be our allies.
The one I was talking about was that white van, right, piece. That's separate from the other videos that I viewed.
That's not the dancing Israelis.
No.
Okay.
I never – we just knew they had set up because they had equipment and they were in the spot to be where they were supposed to – where they could have had access to. But I've never – now maybe there's videos of within that, but I never saw that. Okay. But I did view videos of set up closer. And I don't, for the life of me, I don't know who those folks were. I just don't remember.
Okay. All right. So I don't want to pick at that because that wasn't your purview. The thing I do want to pick at is the story you told. So very quick recounting.
Yeah.
It was
the 15th, the Saturday night after we get information from the employer, which was the local food mart. I can't remember if it was an Acme or a ShopRite or what it was, but it's kind of at the turn. Everybody knows where, if you're familiar with Seaside Heights, Ortley Beach, that area, there's kind of where 35 makes a turn coming out of Ortley going into Seaside Heights. And around that turn, if you kind of go down 37, there's the dock on the right, and you go over the bridge, you can see Seaside Heights rides and all that stuff. There's a food store that stretches that entire length. Very popular. I mean, everybody goes to the food store if you're a renter in Ortley and that stuff. So
yeah, I know where that is.
We get a lead in on that Saturday morning, the 15th. And remember, the leads were popping like it was. I think we were at one point. I think we were taking 1,100 leads a day.
How do you how do you judge those?
So you put so there's 5 desks. We separate the desks via county.
Okay.
And each of those desks is manned for 8 hours at a time, 24/7 by, hire some intel guys, some U.S. attorney people, and they route through them and they just prioritize. So now they're assigning them. I was a team leader, so they're assigning me, everything in Ocean and Monmouth County.
Okay.
Right. And then we would get anything that was evidence collection, my team would get too.
And it could be thousands.
Kind of what could be thousands. So you were working. I mean, you could get a lead that went 15 hours.
How many people were on your team?
At that time, I think I had 11.
All right, well, that's actually impressive given how many teams there had to be.
Yeah, I had 11 FBI agents, and I think we had 5 or 6 task force guys. So they were county prosecutor's office guys. So we had Monmouth and Ocean County guys.
Wow. That's more than I would have expected.
Yeah, so 15, 16 guys. So we get this lead early Saturday morning, and the lead basically says, look, this group of guys, and they were Egyptians. They were Egyptians, right? Which even freakier.
There was one Egyptian hijacker, I think, right?
Right. So there was 7 employees of this food store. So we get, hey, look, I don't know if it's anything. This is the way the call comes in. And I talked to the guy. I'm not sure if it's anything, man, but I can't, it's 4 days after this thing. I'm still a mess. These guys never missed a paycheck. So every single week for 4 years, I think it was more than 4 years. I think they started working there in 2005. They never missed a check. They missed a check this week. This is where it gets scary, right? So
this was planned for long.
So you're gonna love this. So we go. We take. I think it took 3 guys and said the other 8 we were on. Hey, stand by. We had another job. We had video of the hijackers at a wedding like the week or 2 before. So they were going to collect that in Jersey, of course. And so we go in. There's the paychecks. There's the names, and it's the same address. And it's a street in Seaside Heights. Small apartment. So we do all our site survey, do what we got to do. We get visual on it. There's 2 brand new cars parked in the driveway. No tags, just cars brand new with the window sticker on both of them. So immediately I'm like, this is bad, whatever. So we do our airport checks, run the names. They're like, yeah, these guys got tickets, but we halted everything down. So had tickets to fly back the Thursday. So what was that? The 13th? 13th.
They had tickets to
fly back to Alexandria, through Alexandria back to wherever they were going. We didn't have right. So they're on student visas for 5 years, 6 years.
How's that even possible?
Well, there's another guy that was arrested that I don't feel comfortable mentioning his name, but he was arrested for basically $5K a pop. He'd get you in the country and keep you here with a student visa.
Separate apartment, separate
and just
arrest.
keep it crazy, right?
Okay.
But whatever. So anyway, we get it. We do all our I get my evidence response team ready to rock and roll. I didn't feel like I needed SWAT or special operations. I felt more than comfortable because of what I did in the past.
They were scheduled to go out on the 13th, though.
Right.
Why didn't they?
Everything shut down.
Oh, right. Duh.
Everything shut down.
My
So
bad.
I'm like, okay, we got a little bit of time, but I want to go. So we go in. We surveil the ShopRite or whatever. We had 2 guys on that. I had, let's see, me, Quinn. I think it was 6 of us that went to the apartment. 3 were out surveilling, and I had the other 3 guys. I forget if they were just on top of the street, whatever.
Full gear on?
We did not have gear on. We didn't have any identifiers. I made that call because I was just like, hey, I just don't want to mess around, with anybody seeing in case there's nothing going on or whatever. But
Can you imagine like people who can see the smoke from the buildings rising up from ground zero in their neighborhood, seeing like a bunch of FBI jackets out there?
Well, that was the issue. We didn't want to get shot at. We didn't want to get, have locals. You really don't want locals to know, right? You don't want locals to know anything that's going on because who the fuck knows? You don't know if these guys in 5 years, they could have been tight with the dudes, whatever. So, like I said before, knock on the door, and before they even answered the parent, I was like, "We got a problem," So we went and did what we had to do. We got them on the ground, and the TV is just playing a loop of the planes crashing into the tower. So we start to talk. They're belligerent as shit. I think.
How did you get through the door?
4 in.
How did you knock it down?
Yeah.
So they didn't open it up?
No. They opened a little bit, but we knocked it down. So 4 of them are in there. 2 came home. My 2 guys at the top of the street grabbed those 2 coming in, thank God. So we find, the first thing we find, and remember, the box cutters were the thing that wind up slicing the flight attendant's necks, right? So we open the first drawer. There's 20 box cutters laying in there. So right out of the box, you're like, eesh. So now they're all secured. We got them cuffed, and they're fucking talking shit and everything else that goes on. And we start to, we basically call in. We need a search warrant. Search warrants were being issued like at the drop of a hat. Basically it took us about 45 minutes to get a judge to sign off. We gave them everything. We took pictures. We sent pictures. We did backgrounds on these guys quickly to find out the whole deal with being on student visas for 5.5 years, flight out the day after, 2 days after 9/11, right? The whole deal, and get the search warrant. We're seeing stuff. We're kind of seeing like a ton of different clothing and different shit, like brand new shit. So we turn around and we get the search warrant. We start the search warrant, and in the course of small apartment, I'm trying to think. There's 1 bedroom in the back.
6 guys live there?
Six guys. 1 bedroom you walked in. There's the stove and the refrigerator on the left. There was a big living room in front. I could still see it. Little hallway. 2 bedrooms, 1 on each side. Bathroom right in the middle. So we start. It's pack ratted out in the bathrooms, right? In the bedrooms. We start looking. It's just all brand new clothing from Eddie Bauer in tons of different sizes.
What does that tell you?
Immediately, it's a supply cell for people coming into the country. The 2 brand new cars out there were ready to fit in, to the community, and we find backpacks stuffed with American dollars. I counted 1 backpack; it was almost $150,000.
And these guys are working at a supermarket.
Yeah, making $311 a week.
And they weren't students.
No.
What happened to them?
So we, start the process, and we get arrest warrants, and we make arrest warrants, and we arrest them. And there's threats going on. They're threatening. One dude was scary. He's a scary motherfucker. It's a big dude, and he wanted to. He's like, hey, as soon as I can get out of this shit, I'm going to kill somebody. So we're like, well, you ain't getting out. Thanks for saying that. We appreciate it. It helps. And so is he saying that in English? He was saying, it was broken English, but you can clearly understand.
Okay.
They were there long enough to know the deal. So to understand the language and everything else. So in running everything, it led us to the guy who one of them cooperated, gave us the guy who brought them in, which led us to other arrests around the country, which really was the start of Gitmo. We brought those guys to Miami first, and then we brought them to Gitmo, and I did probably 2.5 weeks of interrogations down there
at Guantanamo.
Yeah, and they're still there. So
that's going to be a next time story. We don't have time for that. Holy shit.
Okay. Long story short is
they're still there.
They're still there.
Those guys.
Yeah.
That you arrested.
Yes, absolutely. So they've been there for 20.
There's only like 19 guys left there.
No, there's more, but they'll commute. They'll tell you there's not as many, but there's more than that.
Holy shit, a lot to pick there.
Yeah.
All right, I can't touch that.
Yeah.
We're gonna
so,
have to do that
and
next
I don't
time.
know how much I'll get feedback from somebody. I'll get a phone call this week or when it's released.
You may never
but
hear
that's
that,
fine.
people. Sorry.
That's fine. But ultimately, I feel comfortable in telling that portion of the story because it's scary shit. And that was, that was a great pickup by a true American at that food store. Like that was most people would not. We were getting shit that was like, that was just a great pickup. We weren't getting anything close to something that good.
The guy who put that in, did he say he had a weird feeling for a long time?
No.
Nope.
They were reliable, extremely respectful, timely. Where they went bad was thinking they were getting out of country.
Too perfect.
Yeah. And they had plenty of cash. They had everything that they wanted to do. My thought.
The other guys weren't like that though.
To this day, no, they were party.
Muhammad Atta was
these dudes were party
animals.
They were party animals. These guys too. We found out later through interrogation work, but
yeah, they're real. You know what? They're selectively extremists.
So they were. There was a whole routine. They would fly back just to clear, and then they would bring in half of them back with another 3 guys or 4 guys or 10 guys, however, and they would be available for additional attacks to supply. To provide supplies, to Americanize them, because you
guys just cracked down.
Yeah, and I mean there was nothing going to happen because the world shut down. They thought, they're not the smartest dudes in the world, so they figured, all right, we'll do this, and then we'll just continue to blast west, go through Chicago. You ain't doing shit,
So,
but I worry. I'm going to be honest with you. I worry about this shit coming back. We've let down. Look at the borders. We've let our guard down. And we've got at least a weak appearing administration. We do. It's weak appearing. I don't know anything about what they're doing or policies. I haven't seen much. I haven't read much. I've tried to stay away from the news. But ultimately, I think we've got an issue. I think we've got an issue with at least the appearance, the way the world views this country. I don't like that.
Again, we're going to have to talk about that next time.
Yeah, we will.
I'm not going to touch that because we'll go all day.
Yeah.
The last thing that's got to be touched, though, and then we're done, was the plane in November 2001, because we started to talk about it, and then you got into something important with that had to do with like being the guy being in charge of
the morgue.
Yeah, which was crazy.
Yeah.
So appreciate you going into that. But the idea here was that in November 2001, after the September 11th attacks had happened,
I think it was like right around Veterans Day. So
in November, there was a plane that crashed in Brooklyn
on takeoff,
and it was not a
big
plane.
It was a 767, I believe.
It blew up.
The official word on it that was reported was that it hit. The plane that took off before it was a large 747, it had to be a 747. There was no Airbus like 330 in it, but a huge 747. And its wake, supposedly the plane that crashed took off too close in proximity to the plane in front, and the wake. Now let's be honest. Have you ever seen any air traffic control let's let them both, except if you're the fucking Blue Angels. You don't. It's whatever it is. I don't know what the amount of time, but there's a standard at least a couple minutes. I mean, shit, we all sit on runways and we wait, right? So supposedly, that wake of those engines off the 747 dislodged the tail wing of this 767, or I think it was a 767. It's a big plane.
That's a huge. That's like the double decker.
Correct. Well, no, it's like it's. I can tell you because it's there was no pods back in those days on these things.
Well,
but
Air Force One is a 757, right?
No, it's bigger. It's 747.
Is that bigger?
Yeah.
I thought 737 is the lowest.
It is, but then it goes 737, 747 is next biggest, and then 57 smaller but bigger than the 37. 67
I didn't know that. Okay.
67 has the 242.
That's Air Force One.
No, Air Force One is even bigger. It's bigger than that.
Okay,
it's huge.
All right, it's its own thing.
But
so this plane crashes off the runway in Brooklyn.
It loses
at JFK.
It was LaGuardia.
So the Bronx, I guess.
I can't remember.
Is that where LaGuardia
I can't remember.
is?
Look, can you look it up real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say it's. No, I want to say it's closer. It's LaGuardia.
American Airlines Flight 587. I'm just going to put it behind us. Switch the source real quick. This was November 12th, 2001.
Yeah.
It was, I said the flight. So it was American Airlines Flight 587, regularly scheduled international flight from John F. Kennedy Airport to Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic.
Yep.
On November 12th, 2001, the Airbus was flying the route, crashed into the neighborhood of Bell Harbor, Rockaway, Peninsula of Queens, so very close to Brooklyn. I see what you're saying. So it got off the ground and then right
plummeted.
Away.
So
okay.
and the cause was the tail wing fell off due to the wake. Now, come on.
Is this case closed?
Come on. Yeah, it's closed.
How fast?
That's a good question. As long as it took, the FAA or the, what is it? What's the Federal Emergency, whatever the hell it is, the flight, it's not.
Whatever it is. I know it is. FSTB or something.
Something like that. Yeah. So as long as it took them to get the black box but the tragedy was that it killed a bunch of people on the ground. It killed a bunch of people in the neighborhoods, like a lot of shit, like flying debris.
When I was young, I never heard of this.
No, it was not publicized. I mean, I'm telling you, it was November 11th is Veterans Day. I remember it because I was scheduled to go. I was actually scheduled to take my first day off on the 11th, and I got called in to do evidence. I had to bring evidence via Blackhawk down to our crime lab in Quantico. Came back late, got to bed late, and I get a fucking call at 3 o'clock or 4, whatever time it was. 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, we just had another plane go down. So I'm thinking, oh my God.
Another one.
And it was. And there's no doubt in my mind. Somebody loosened up that tail. Had to be.
So
how the hell else can it? Doesn't fall. It doesn't fall off. Who knows?
Do you think that could have been like a copycat asshole?
I don't know.
But they kind of covered that up.
No, I did the morgue. I did all the.
So you weren't on the case. You were doing.
I did all the terrible, I think we talked about it last time. Most people die from broken necks.
Yeah.
Body's intact. So picture I'm.
Really?
Yeah.
On a plane crash?
You're doing, shit, the thing got up off the ground and came right back down. So on impact, think about you drive 250 miles an hour right now into a tree.
And there were no survivors, right?
No. No. Terrible carnage. Awful. So, we're trying to get back to normal in airports, right? And that happens.
That could have been a coordinated kind of thing. And actually, I don't even
1,000,000%. It was somebody that survived. That is a cell that survived the fucking after. That's lazy police work.
See, that's the shit that makes people not trust governments, though, because
that's my opinion. I don't know that.
Yeah, I understand.
But I know my guys didn't have a chance to do anything else. I can guarantee you that.
No one got on it.
In my fucking territory. And that doesn't help anybody else, but
there's also a part of me that says, and people are going to yell at me for saying this, but there's a part of me that says I actually get that one because someone fucked up and the nation was on such a high alert. I guess it killed people on the ground. That's horrible.
Oh, I don't know what it said. The article, but it killed some people in their apartment, in their beds, burnt down houses and shit.
I can understand if the government had already, people were still in a panic, But I can understand if the government was like, holy fucking shit, we can't have...
Could be.
I mean, I think that's a bad precedent. Don't get me wrong. I think that's the wrong decision. But you know that there was going to be panic on that. Massive panic.
Agreed.
So how many people died?
It was a lot of people.
251. Man. There were 260 occupants, 260 died.
Yeah.
And then ground injuries, 5 fatalities.
Yeah, it was a young kid it's like a high school kid in his bed.
Christ.
Because I did his recovery too.
Oh. All right, so you don't know a fuck ton about that beyond that?
I mean, I kind of would, remember, we were still on, we were 100% on
9/11.
On Pen Pom. So we weren't, I mean, that was a 100% evidence recovery. So I just got tasked out because I had experience at morgue overseas. So I was like, we're like, you're going there. And I remember I got back on the Black Hawk after midnight. And went to bed, and then I was like, what the hell? That's my phone. And we were leaving, we were leaving 2-3 phones on, because if you needed something, you needed to go. We were the lead FBI office in New Jersey because New York was shut down. They weren't open because they couldn't take a chance. So we set up everything, Fresh Kills in Staten Island was
They were in that
response.
26th Street garage or whatever.
Yeah.
They just made a documentary on that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy.
So I mean, we had the ticket on that. Our office.
Damn. Well, Jim, that was 6 hours, man. That's 2 episodes right there. It's going to work out well. But
I'm tired.
I always hesitate to say this because I do enjoy all of them. I think this was probably my favorite we ever did. We covered a lot. This was a great curtain call coming back out for people because people appreciated this whole thing. But thank you. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here